Jeff, just stand up and beat your chest, baby. Woo!
All right, all right. And we are now live as Jay Campbell's beating his chest live on YouTube. Welcome to The Last Stand. And as always, it's Jay and I. And tonight we're very excited to have Matt Belair with us. And you know, Matt is the Zen athlete. He's helping people optimize their lives. You know, Jay Campbell as one of the foremost optimization experts in the United States. And I was thinking about these guys today because I was moving. I was packing my U-Haul. And about 6 months ago, I weighed over 50 pounds more than I do right now. And because of Jay Campbell, I'm out there and I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling fit and fab over 55, even though Jay's over 40. I'm fit and fab over 55. And I'm slinging around furniture and I'm throwing around boxes. And my buddy that was helping me says, "No, let me get that one." So I'll have him like, "No, I'm thinking I can be a Zen athlete. I can be fit fab over 55." So I get this big bin up, and you get it right to that place to where it sticks, and it's either going to go up or it's going to come down and be in like 40 different pieces. So I had to reach down, and I had to get my inner Jay Campbell going. I had to get my Matt Belair going. I felt like I was 55 all of a sudden instead of 25 or whatever Belair is. And I finally got that thing up to and put it up. And I had to just sit down on the edge of the truck. And I went from 25 to 55 just like that. And I felt every bit of my age. But Jay, I do appreciate your work in helping me get to where I am, where I can actually overdo it sometimes. And Matt, I'm really looking forward to hearing about your story. Tell us, if you would, real briefly, or not even briefly, take all the time you want. How did you become the Zen athlete, my friend?
Oh, well, first of all, I appreciate you having me on the show, and it's always good to be with Jay and you two and just discuss these things. But for me, I grew up a martial artist. So as long as I could remember, I was just curious about what I could do as a martial artist. And I would watch all those movies, the Kung Fu masters doing these amazing things. And I was just like, where is the limit? Right.
Which art were you a practitioner of?
So I started as karate as a kid, and my dad would train me too. So I was doing karate, and then very young, I started to emulate Bruce Lee. And so that was Jeet Kune Do right away. And just kind of, I thought about it even differently in martial arts, because there's like those schools of thought, right? Karate, judo, whatever the case is, they're all great, but Bruce Lee had a different way of thinking. So I was already thinking about that a little bit differently at a young age. And so I was doing meditation and things like that. Then I got into skateboarding, and I loved skateboarding, and I loved other sports. And martial arts, you have the mindset with it, right? Mm-hmm. It's about that self-expression, self-evolution, but the mind part is very important. Spiritual part is very important about why you're doing it. And so I just brought those into other sports. Fast forward, my early 20s, I was in Whistler snowboarding and teaching people snowboarding. And what surprised me was I was doing a huge level up going to Whistler. I had really small mountains, now I'm in the mecca of snowboarding, these monster jumps that are like 60, 80 feet. People are just doing the most extraordinary moves, and I want to learn them. And I'm trying to ask advice, and they don't know anything about the mental game. And I'm like, how did you like do that? And they're like, I don't even know how I did it. And I was like, what? I was like, you don't visualize your trick. You don't know how to like clear your mind. You just go and huck it. That's basically the feedback I got. Yeah, I'm going to do a backflip over this 80-foot jump. You just huck it, bro. I was like, oh, okay, well, I think we could do a little bit better than that.
So these guys were unconsciously competent, and you're trying to model them, and they couldn't give you anything to model.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it was a whole nother ballgame. So I was like studying, personal development, consciousness, spirituality, sports psychology, hypnosis, everything that I could to become a better athlete, but also expand my consciousness. And then realizing in snowboarding, nobody knew this. So I started to teach it. And then just one thing led to another. And I made a snowboard program. I was like, you know what? This is uncommon in all extreme sports, and they're the most dangerous. We have a necessity to have a strong mental game. So like if you hurt yourself on a freestyle motocross bike or trying a double backflip, right? That could be season ending or life ending, or, stretch it out. Life ending. Yeah. So you have this necessity. And so I just took all the tools and I made it very simple. And the hope is that this becomes popular in all youth sport and all sport around the world, because I say like the book is so far ahead of its time, but behind the times. These are timeless principles, but you can apply them right now for anything. art, music, business. Like if you take the necessity it takes. So one of my athletes, his name's Brody Carmichael, and he came after he fell on a front flip. And he goes, hey, bro, I heard you're good. I fell on a front flip and I want to land it. And I was like, okay, cool. We do an hour talk. And then his mental game was pretty good. I told him to visualize the tricks and some other things. 3 weeks later, he lands the front flip. 3 weeks after that, he lands the world's first front flip heel clicker on a motorcycle. 3 weeks after that, the world's front flip Superman on a motorcycle. And he didn't practice it one time, but he did it in his mind. I taught him the basics of the mental game. They're not complicated, but no one's doing it. But he had a necessity because he didn't want to die. So if we take that necessity and those simple tools and we give ourselves a reason to apply it to music, to business, to art, to life, to sport, you will accelerate at a much greater rate because it's a little bit different. You go to the gym and your arms hurt and you get all that kind of thing and you feel it and you know you're doing something, but it takes a little bit. It's just a different form of training. It's just a little bit uncommon in our culture right now, but not uncommon in martial arts, not uncommon when I train with the Shaolin masters in China. It's just not common here in Western parts of the world and in Eastern parts. But
that's because we know everything here in the West, Matt.
Exactly. So
Jay, how do you respond to that?
We know how to overprice people. We know how to make people get billed automatically more times than they agree to. Man, it's funny because as I was telling you, Jeff, a little bit about Matt today when we were talking off air about, Matt is a very interesting guy. He's incredibly cultured. He's traveled the world. Since I met Matt about Matt, almost 2.5 years ago we met. And then personally, we hung out about 2 years ago almost now too. It's amazing how fast time flies. But Matt actually did a heart meditation with me about 21 months ago too. And I still have that. I still listen to it every now and then, but Matt is really amazing with his guided meditations. But when you really start traveling the world, and as Matt knows, and Jeff too, my wife and I have done a lot of traveling in the last 2 years. I mean, we have a rule where we try to go like every 2 months, we're in an exotic destination. Like we made a pact with each other at the beginning of 2017. It was actually at the end of 2016. It was right before I met Matt personally, but I'd already started talking to Matt. But we said, look, we're going to work around our travel. So travel is first and everything else is secondary, obviously, unless something happens with the children. And so we made that conscious choice. And, the last 2 years, going on 20 months now, it's just been amazing. We've gone to so many places. And when you travel internationally and you travel so much, and I know Matt has too, you realize that what people believe, especially in the United States, and what we've been taught in our schools and all of this other stuff is mostly nonsense. And, outside of this country, people don't have this perception that, people in the USA are bad news or, the damn Yanks or any of this nonsense that we've been force fed in our culture in the United States, quote unquote, in the West. It's just not true. I mean, when I just came back from Thailand, I was there for essentially 13 days. I mean, really 11 days in the countryside, 2 full days to travel and get home. The people over there are just so spiritual and they're so down to earth and they're so humble. And you would never ever like expect them to treat a United States citizen or again, a person from the West, in the way that we are perceived to be treated because of all the nonsense that we hear in the mainstream news, the fake news. I can't even call it the mainstream news anymore. It's just pure fakery. I don't know what comes out of the mainstream news. I mean, I think we all know at this point that you can't trust anything that comes out of the mainstream. So it's very interesting to me to, again, to have the mindset of a traveler, of a global traveler and to realize that the perception that the preconceived notions that we've been, inculcated for so long in the West are mostly nonsense. Mm-hmm. And other than my story that I gave Rex the other day on the Leak Project and the podcast we did about China, which was really bizarre. And I was going to ask you that, Matt. It's a good question. I'll let you answer it. But when we went into China, they fingerprinted us and they thumbprinted us and they laser eye printed it. Did they do that to you when you were in China? Or is that a relatively new thing now?
I think that's new. But for those of you who don't know out there, I'm sure you're aware of this. They don't have YouTube access. They don't have Facebook access. I had to do these different things. And they're terrified to talk about anything religious or political there. So really suppressed culture is pretty intense.
You know what? Let me just
gentlemen, and let me ask you if you think that this is a coincidence or if you think it has some relevance. You know, Jay, you're talking about being a world traveler. Matt's a world traveler. I've been on 5 of 7 continents. Do you think that's a common theme to people, that once they do a lot of traveling, they get outside of their bubble, that it lends you towards a higher rate or at least a higher interest in spirituality?
Go ahead, Matt.
Well, my perception of that is, only because it kind of forces you out of the box that you're in. It makes you more open to another perspective. And that's all. Exactly. You know, really, as I was doing thinking about understanding when I was studying with David Lonebear, who's a native elder in Maine, and that's why I'm here. He's an extraordinary person. And we're talking about understanding, and we're not seeking understanding. We're waiting to talk to someone. We're not trying to learn. And when you go to another cult, you're forced into that. And then you're like, oh, you can question what you know. But then this is when you get to the spiritual growth. It's like, look, I don't know everything, right? These are my direct experiences. Here are some I feel can help you. And then now you have somebody for a total different upbringing, right? A total different culture, a total different place. And you can learn so much. So when you seek understanding, rather than telling people what you know or even trying to force them. So when you've got these subcultures, right? The 50 states, well, they divide the 50 states. So you compete in school in like the color of your banner and your flag and the logo. And now we're competing. And that's one of the things with Zen Athlete that I hope to do is redefine the sport culture. Like have these leaders in sports say, look, if you take your little league team over here, it's to bring the communities together. It's not so little Tommy in martial arts beats up little Doug. Right. It's not so we smash you in football and you're the loser and we're the winner. It's culturally bringing people together. That's what sport can do. It's about empowering the kids, empowering the community, bringing them together. And when you travel, you realize people actually are the same, and you're only getting little window shots of what the media wants you to think about these people, you know?
Right.
So that's my thought on that.
Now, Matt, how do we balance what you're talking about, which I think is right, emphasizing the sportsmanship, emphasizing the unity, emphasizing, more than just the win-lose within sport. And how do we balance that with the everybody gets a trophy, there's no winner, there's no loser, competition isn't even really what we want? Do we want to go that far, or is there a balance between the hyper, let's kill them, or the everybody gets a trophy, we're not even going to compete?
Yeah, I think you can go too far either way, but I don't, I'm totally fine with everybody gets a trophy, but the thing is, I don't think that it takes out the competitive spirit. If I compete with anybody on anything, what it does, it makes me want to do better because I see them do it. Right. But the idea is like when you're done, it's like your brother in arms. Even you'll see the greatest beefs in MMA, they usually stop after they fight because you know what I mean? You have a respect.
Yeah, exactly.
Individual, you know what I mean? And so I don't think it diminishes the competition. It's just the spirit of it. You know what I mean? And so, so that's my thought. I think it's fine.
Joe, I want to go back to what you said, the first question to Matt, because I think first off, the answer to the question is absolutely. That as a person, like with my experience as a kid, and you know this, Jeff, and maybe you don't know this, Matt, but I was in 5 high schools in 5 states in 4 years. Okay. Wow. So I was a new guy up and down the eastern seaboard of the United States. My father was ascending the corporate ladder and he was being promoted. And as a child with no real say and no money and no, recourse to do anything else, I'm traveling with him. So I'm in 5 different high schools in 5 states in 4 years. Very brutal, very difficult upbringing, but it made me the person that I am now today, right? I'm a very good communicator. I can build relationships and connect with people very easily. So looking back on it, it was all a benefit. But, to Jeff's original question, once you start moving around and remember Mark Twain's quote was the greatest threat to ignorance is travel, right? That's his statement. And it's absolutely true because once you start moving around, and now I'm doing it all over the world, and I did it a little bit when I played pro basketball a long time ago, but everything that we get, these sound bites in the mainstream news is BS. And I can say this, and one thing that drives me crazy, and Matt's exactly right, but the one thing that drives me crazy is listening to people who are not cultured / travelers, especially in the States, and you don't see it anywhere else outside of here, who make comments when you tell them where you're going. And like, I'll just put it as an aside, like this is the one that comes up the most. Whenever we go to Mexico.
Yeah.
Oh, are you guys, why would you do that? It's dangerous down there. The cartel, man. I mean, I could go on and on and on. I mean, like, I've been to Mexico more than 25 times in my life. Okay. I'm a pretty big dude, not menacing, but I can handle myself, take up space. And I have never once in my life, and I've been to some shady areas. Okay. I was in a barrio clinic where my ex-wife went through a very serious situation. People that know me know this whole story. She almost died. She went into anaphylactic shock from eating shellfish. And it was like, she died in my arms literally twice. Third time she was revived, got her to this clinic. And I'm in this clinic and it's like in the darkest part of Cabo San Lucas, way off the main strip. And I don't speak Spanish. She doesn't speak Spanish. Thank God the cab driver who got us there, the fastest place we could get, did speak English and was able to communicate to the doctors and the nurse that she was having an anaphylactic reaction and she wasn't just some drunk gringo that they would have pumped because she'd have died. But anyway, I'm in there and I see a guy come in about an hour and a half later, screaming at the top of his lungs with a machete stuck in between his shoulder blades. Okay. And I was in there with 2 federales with sawed-off shotguns, and I'm covered in vomit from when my ex-wife now revived, and I'm not once felt threatened. Okay, so I tell you guys that story because I've been in some very dark areas of Mexico, and I have never, ever, ever felt that the Mexican people were a menace or a threat or violent or not wanting to get the American, the gringo. I mean, it's such nonsense. The stuff that they feed us in the mainstream news that, again, the majority of humans consume is fake. I mean, it really is fake. And I don't even defend myself. I don't know about you, Matt. I mean, but I don't even defend it anymore. I don't get into arguments with people. I don't bother to say that's nonsense. I just, I let it go. But I wanted to say it here because so many people believe that traveling the world is going to be a fearful event and that you're going to be robbed or raped or, disadvantaged or something bad's going to happen to you. It's all BS.
Yeah, Jay, I'll just add on to that story because I think it's important. And with your show and your work and what you're doing, and anybody who kind of does some research and just questions, you realize that maybe some of it isn't exactly as what they're portraying. Each country you got to be afraid of. These people are going to do this. Watch out for the Taliban. And it goes back to what is like, I don't know the original quote, but it's like, to control the people, like you need to create an enemy to go to war first. And there's always some sort of new enemy. And so we realize that, okay, there's programming coming in that is separating us and keeping us afraid. Just have the courage to seek understanding and move out, and don't just believe everything, don't believe what I'm saying. Don't believe what we're saying. Just go out and have a look. But when you do, then you start to realize the actual truth of what's going on. And then you're going to start to be a little bit different on where you take that information. And so that understanding should lead into how you live your life, how you create your reality. What's possible? What do they tell you is possible? They sell you 40 hours a week until you're 60. When I was a kid, I was like, everybody was buying that. What's that movie where they live, and it's just like work 40 hours. I was like 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. And you're going to give me 2 days off and then 2 weeks off a year. Like, are you crazy? I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I got to figure out something else because that's nuts. Right. And so just question what you're being fed.
Absolutely.
Just to what Jeff, just to what Matt said, because Matt and I actually, it's so funny. There's no coincidence. This is deja vu effect because me and Matt talked about this before. But when you do travel the world and you're blessed to do that, and again, we don't have to get into the economics of traveling the world. Anyone can do it. Where there's a will, there's a way, right? You can, as you know, you can backpack, you can stay at hostels, but that's not the conversation. The conversation right now is when you travel the world, how are you going to be to others? Are you going to be an asshole because you're in a foreign country and you don't understand the cultures, or maybe you can't speak the language? Or are you going to be a warm, humble, open, transparent, genuinely happy, loving human being? Because when you do that, you're never going to run into trouble. I just have not seen it. And I'm telling you guys, I have been in some dark areas of the world. I've been in some shady areas. You know, people will come back to me and they'll be like, oh, dude, you're just a big dude and people are afraid of you and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, it's the way I carry myself. Okay. I'm not looking for fights. I'm not looking to cause problems. I'm looking to be a good human being with a smile on my face who's grateful that I have the opportunity to be in a foreign culture with people who don't know me. It's an amazing opportunity, but not until you treat it as such.
You know, Jay, I had that experience. A light went on for me. I was living in Germany, and, you know, I would try to speak the language. I'd go into, you know, wherever I was going, and I would try to speak German. And the Germans were all too helpful to you once you tried to speak the language. They probably didn't want to listen to you butcher German anymore. But then I'd watch other Americans come in. Do you speak English? 9. They didn't help them at all. So all it is you actually trying to apply yourself. I'm in your country.
100%.
I'm going to try to speak your language. I'm going to try to adhere to your cultural norms, and they will bend over backwards to help you. But if you go in there expecting them to conform to your ideals, and, you know, we even have this in our relationships in this country. We expect, you know, a man expects there's some things that a woman's supposed to do, and a woman expects there's some things that a man's supposed to do. And the reality is that you can try to legislate that, but I found out after 55 years, and, you know, Sandra's favorite joke for me is the 4th time's the charm, because I tried 3 times and it hasn't worked. But if you can try to legislate it, but you're never going to get it. But if you just allow someone to be divine and sovereign and free, allow them to be a full person and a whole person, support them, they're going to wind up doing even more than you would be able to legislate. And it takes that weight of expectation off. And it's the same thing as walking into a German restaurant and saying, do you speak English? No. Try to contextualize yourself. Try to allow that person to be divine, sovereign, and free. And just don't be a dick. It's really not that hard.
So true.
Can we say that on YouTube?
I think so. Well, Jeff, I'm glad you said that, because that's literally where it's going. It's just traveling is forcing that upon you, because the differences are bigger. Right. And so because we're similar to each other, you know, our way is the right way, their way is the wrong way. And you've got to fit their mold. You got to fit their religion. You got to fit their belief system. You got to fit all that stuff. And if you seek understanding and kindness, you know, the world reflects in that. And I'll speak to Jay. I've been to like maybe 30 countries, some super hairy situations. And like, I haven't really run into a problem.
Yeah.
You know?
And, you know, another light bulb went on to me. I'm from the United States, you know, born and raised in Florida in the South. And I'm walking down the street in Germany, this little town called Auringen. And I'm walking on these streets. I'm looking at these buildings, and I'm realizing these buildings in this street is like 5 times as old as anything in the United States. And I realized, thinking, you know what, there's a chance that they might just have some ideas that might be at least as efficient and effective as the ideas that we came up with 200 years ago.
When you go to Rome or, you know, any place like in Italy or Spain, and you see that amazing, you know, old school architecture and this ornate construction. I mean, you know, Dr. Hawkins talks about in his books that, you know, some of the ancient cathedrals and some of the amazing constructions over there, they're like 700. They calibrate into like 700 to 800 because of the amazing, you know, skill.
The actual structures calibrate at 700?
Absolutely. In the eye, he has a whole section on like ancient cathedrals and all of these like structures that calibrate. Yeah, so it's fascinating. But how many people that we know in life who've gone there and they've seen the Leaning Tower and they've seen the Colosseum and they've seen all this amazing like brick, stone, masonry, and architecture through those parts of the world, and you come away with this like sacred, you feel like, wow, you feel elevated.
Or you come away with a picture of you holding up the Leaning Tower, and that's all you got.
Those used to be postcards, which, by the way, was hilarious that you just said that, because the first place I got to in Thailand, and we got in at like 1:45 in the morning, was our hotel, which is amazing. But again, it's at 1:45 in the morning. And the first thing that I see when I check up to the desk is postcards. I'm like, oh, who sends postcards with cell phones? But it was funny that you said that. But no, but it's true though. What you said, Jeff, it's right. I mean, you know, the United States has just been, we're so commercialized. It's just so overproduced and so over sensationalized that you're right. The people in other cultures are tired of it. We're not what we once were anyway. I mean, I know Trump's trying to create who we once were, but ultimately we're all equal, as Matt said. We really are. We're all equal. And until you see yourself as such, I mean, it's like I'm a 6'2", white dude with a pretty impressive physique, and I'm walking around a bunch of people in Thailand who are 5'5" at best men. Tiny, diminutive human beings. And the women are smaller than that. And their bone structures, they're tiny. And it's like, if I'm going to walk around and act like an asshole, then you know what? Shame on me, dude. I mean, it's like, I look at them as equal. Actually, when I'm there, I feel beneath them because I can't speak their language and I'm embarrassed about that.
Yeah.
So,
well, Jay, feel free to say, Jeff, you're right anytime you want to. And Matt, did you have an encounter with Toth at a festival in Costa Rica?
Yeah, that's a long story though.
Is there like a Cliff Notes version of it?
Yeah, you can. I posted the long version on my YouTube channel and on the Leak Project, so you can just Google that. But I'll give you the very short version. I meet a guy on the bus going into Envision. I don't see him till Saturday. I see he's tall. He's playing the flute. And I'll just leave his name out of this, but I go, hey man, like, how's it going? And he's playing this flute and he looks at me dead serious and goes, the universe gifted me this flute. When I started playing it, I got taken to a cave with 9 beings. And I look at the flute and it's hand carved with like this frog on it. It's some sort of native, indigenous, wild, gnarly looking flute.
Wow.
And so he doesn't look like he's getting at all. You know what I mean? And I had a conversation with him before, I was like, okay. And I was like, well, what did they say? And he goes, well, they said that they've been here long before us and they'll be here long after. The flute is a communication device. He's like, just like us, they don't want to talk to everybody. So I was like, well, what else did they say? And when I'm asking him the question, I can see his wheels turning, trying to figure out what happened to bring it out to tell me what happened. And so we discuss a few more things. He talks about, I think, like a pyramid on Mars and just little bit of some stuff I heard before. Jay's Decoders of Truth, like those guys know so much more than I do. I've been in those rabbit holes, but I haven't I'm doing my own thing now, so I don't have the time to research it as I once did. But so I was familiar with some of the concepts, but it was very linear in the ones he was sharing. So I was like, holy crap. I was like, well, have an amazing festival. Next time you go, see if you can bring a friend. And so I let him do his thing. And I ended up talking to him after a few days later, confirmed, you know what I mean? He didn't switch it. He wasn't trying to, make up story. We went deeper into it. So the next day I go, I want to experience with God or ETs in a way that I know for sure it's undeniable, and that was my intention. Then I did a walking meditation because apparently you send the thought and then it goes out right to the universe or whatever. So I did probably a 3-minute walk before I came in. I get some face paint. I go sit while I get sparkles. It's not good enough. This girl's doing face paint. We start face painting. I do like a healing on her. Like I have this like tuning fork. So I get them to imagine the reality or whatever, do the tuning fork. She goes into a meditative state and I don't just want to leave her. So I just wait. She doesn't come out, wait. And I was like, okay, well, I'll get into a meditative state also. 10 minutes goes by and she doesn't come out. So I decide I'm going to hold her hands because I keep thinking she's waiting for me.
Right.
So then as soon as I hold her hands, I launch into like oneness mind, however you want to call it, like I meditate a lot and that was like in it, whatever you're going to call it, samadhi. I was in there.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I
can't understand people that don't meditate and are trying to walk a spiritual path. But anyway.
Yeah, you got to clear the mind, right? So meditate it's not always great. So anyway, so I'm in that space, so deep, launched. And it was already deep before that too. And so I feel something. And so I think she's coming too. So I open my eyes, but I don't open in like consciousness yet. It's kind of like that oneness mind, but my eyes are open and I see feet. I can't remember what the feet look like. We're like this too. She's in front of me, right beside a pitch. Somebody takes a picture. And so I think to myself, that's going to be a really cool picture. I was like, yeah, cool picture. And so it gets dropped over my left shoulder and it falls onto her skirt. And so I'm watching it and the picture's coming up, one of those like Polaroids, right? It's coming up. And then a figure starts to appear, and I'm waiting, and then it's friggin' Thoth, whoever, and it's not the hieroglyph. It looks like friggin' Jay with the nose, or with the bird head. Yeah. And the crazy thing was, he was sitting there, it's a dark room. I could tell it was like some sort of Egyptian pyramid. It was really dark, the photo. And he was holding that pen he always holds.
Yeah.
He was sitting in a chair. So there was the woman in the chair, and he was holding the thing. And I realized it wasn't a pen. It was also a vibrational device.
Tuning fork like you were using, sort of.
Yeah, 100%. And that's literally what I do. So I was like, oh my, so I go, what the flying F.
Yeah.
And so I want to look the picture, but I was like, I'm holding her hand. We'll get to the bottom of this. And because this oneness mind, this feeling is special. When you have it, you're like, I want all that.
You don't want to leave it. Yeah.
So I'm like, it's right here. No problem. I dive back in, launched into oneness mind. She gets up and she's like, okay, ready to go. So she opens her eyes. I open mine, and I'm stuck in the oneness mind. So she kind of looks at me.
Is that the same as 0 point?
However you just, it's undescribable, right? Like Alan Watts says, it's like a knife trying to cut itself. It's, I don't even know. It's intense, whatever it is. It's beyond like a regular state consciousness, and it's so lots of people try to describe it. You can't really. So I'm stuck in the oneness mind. She looks at me. She gets freaked out a little bit. She starts to walk away. I get up to I'm thinking, I got to stop. And I'm trying to get back to my body, say, please wait, please wait. And so I finally say it. She keeps walks away. I try to get up, and I was like, should I chase her? But I'm at the festival, and I'm like, I don't want to be a creep, but I got to know what the hell just happened. So I try to get up and walk after her. My right leg is dead.
It's
asleep. I can't move. I take one step, sit back down, think, what the heck? Then 2 minutes later, she comes booking back down the path right towards me, comes right up to me, doesn't look at me, and goes, where's the photo?
Wow.
I was like, I don't have it. She goes, where's the photo? And I was like, I swear I don't have it. Please look at me. She goes, no, where's the photo? And I was like, I promise I'll do anything. What did you see? She goes, empty your pockets. I started to empty my pockets. I look, promise. Like, I don't know what happened. Like, what happened? What did you see? And she goes, empty your other pocket, empty both my other promise. I was like, I promise, like I'll do whatever you ask. Like, please look at me. What did you see? And she looks at me really briefly, and she's freaked out, and she just pieced out. And so, so she leaves. I'm like thinking, what the heck? And then I'm like, okay, what am I going to do with myself now? And then I look to my right, and there's a tree, and it looks like the Bodhisattva tree. It's got these two huge roots coming out. And I was like, I bet you that will be the most comfortable place to go back towards. And I know that oneness consciousness deal was still there. So I was like, all right, here we go. So I take 2 steps, put my back in this tree, and I get stuck in that state for 6 hours, midnight to 6 a.m. at the last night of the Vision Festival. And I could tell when because I was at a festival, right? I could tell when people were around me, but I could bring my consciousness to like any stage, and then it like flew me over to different parts of the world. I understood how wind, and I don't know if this is true, but this was like, it was like wind is carrying communication through the forest. Right?
It's absolutely true.
Forest, it's absolutely hear all the trees, right? And all the
that's the original network. That's the OG.
Yeah. So then I was like floating through the wind. I was like, oh shit. I was like, well, that makes sense.
It does make grass, trees, flowers, dirt. It all carries communication.
So I was like in that network somehow experientially. And again, like how would you, if you got to be a bee's consciousness, how would you describe that? Or if a bee got to be a human's consciousness, how would you describe that? So whatever that space was, I was stuck in it for 6 hours, and I thought I was going to be there forever, oddly enough. And until about 5.5 hours, my body just started to kill. I wasn't even aware of it the whole time. And I was like, oh God. And my right leg was just killing me because my legs weren't as flexible, but that's it in a nutshell. I go into it a lot in a lot more depth. And it was fascinating. So, and then the interesting thing, Jay, on the recommendation of you, I was reading The Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East. I just finished book 6, a couple days before I got to Envision. Then I remember, as I'm processing how the heck this is possible, in those books, you remember, they say we can take photographic evidence.
Oh yeah.
Of do you remember any examples? But they gave a bunch of examples of stuff you shouldn't be able to photograph in those Life and Teachings. And like,
Jay, have you turned Matt onto the Baba G book?
No, that was where I was going to go. So Matt, this is what's so fascinating is that Gerald and I did a podcast last night, and Robert Stanley reached out to me and Jeff about 2-3 weeks ago, Jeff, and said, guys, I have a book that was given to me that you have to stop everything that you're doing. I'm going to send it to you when we get off the show.
And today the author reached out to me. I don't know if I told you that, Jay, or not.
Yeah, you told me that this morning, so you can talk about that in a second. But just to give you some update, Matt, about what Gerald and I talked about last night, and obviously Gerald got it from me and Jeff too, same time. And Gerald has been completely blown away by this. Okay, Gerald's world has completely been transformed in the last like 2.5 weeks. Now, he obviously has always been a big proponent of Thoth, and obviously I have too. We read so much, and we have always believed that he has been instrumental in shaping the movement of mankind to this, DNA evolution to where we're 4D, 5D, whatever, spiritually evolved humans. Last night though, which is so mind blowing, and I'll just, Jeff, share with Reverend Wiseman, who's the writer of this book, and Matt will give you this book. It's called Bobby J, the ET, and
blow your mind, bro. Blow your mind.
Dude, it's essentially,
of course, it's an ET.
Listen, it's Thoth or whatever we want to call him. Hermes, Trimesticus, all these different names he has. But this book really shapes everything that was written before it, because it was written in 2015, and talks about who he really is. And so he makes it reference to like the Eastern teachings, okay, of like Zen, Taoism, Buddhism, all that stuff, and who Thoth really is. And so your story is very relevant, because I believe anyone on this path who understands how to get a silent mind, to go into deep meditation, contemplation, whatever, can see Thoth, can see or be around him, because he is truly our brother's keeper. He is the guy, the spiritual avatar throughout history, who has been involved in all of the conscious evolution. I mean, again, if you read Manly Hall's book, he talks about him as the president, and he was referred to as the president, who was this invisible hand, figuratively and literally, who helped in the American Revolution. There was this guy who just showed up when all of the framers of the Constitution were going crazy and they were all losing their wits. I'm sure it was Archon infection. And he was able to calm all of them down, Jefferson, Franklin, Adams, and all of them, and get them to write and to bring the United States Constitution and Declaration to where it got to be. And again, we became this great country. And remember, that was then. Now this country is, long been stolen by whatever dark forces. But the reality is, Matt, is what you saw has been probably embraced by many, many people who have been on the consciousness path for eons.
Yeah. And I'll let Jeff chime in, because I know he wanted to say something, but all I'll share is, and I think it's important that you said it, is that it's not like I'm special and unique and I'm the only one that could have it. And it's like, I'm like this thing. It's like a lot of people since have written me and shared these unbelievable experiences that they've had. But what I will share is I have been on the path for a long, long time, and not like, faking it. Like, I've been 3 months koala habitat. I was in Egypt with Nassim Harami and the residents. And then that was the other thing. I was just recently in Egypt with advanced technology behind my head and on my third eye. And they talked about the pyramids needed an energy source. And that's what the Ark crystal in Nassim's work is. So I had 64 behind my head. So I was in the King's Chamber with advanced technology behind my head. And I've been doing years of work, like what about meditation? What happens when you meditate all day, every day for a few months? I don't know. Let's give it a shot, So I dive all in and go into the practices. And, so then I say they're like these little coupons. And I also asked for it. I literally asked for that. So it's like a little universal wink. And the idea is that it's accessible for everyone. The principles are simple. Yep. Learn how to clear your mind, act from your heart without fear. Don't, if you're afraid you can't put food on the table and you do a job that harms others, doesn't count. Stop doing that. Right. You know what I mean? No actions through fear. That's it. And over time it will unfold, and, you'll end up having a beautiful life experience where sometimes maybe something unexplainable will happen. And I've heard recently, like Wayne Dyer once in a talk said that he was meditating and he realized he was levitating. He's like, it only happened once. And he's like, it only happened once. Somebody was telling, because I told him the story, and they're like, dude, did you hear about Wayne Dyer levitating? He's like, it happened one time. And then as soon as he realized he was doing it, he stopped. So who knows? Right. But we do know when we look at physics, molecules disappear and reappear. We have no idea what's going on. And then you get into simulation and hologram, and, then all of a sudden you're nice and deeply in the rabbit hole.
Matt and Bobby J, just real quick before Jeff jumps in, they talk
Does
about.
Jeff look like he wants to jump in?
They talk about the pyramids literally as what Thoth built to bring about the ascendance, which is what's coming, the shift, whatever's happening when we move in, the movement, the processional of the equinoxes, at 26,000 year shift. That's what causes the energetic frequency to be where we are. And that's why the pyramids are all over the earth. We all know this, right? The pyramids are everywhere. They're buried under the ocean. They're everywhere. They're healing temples, or, they're harmonic frequency temples to shift, to change frequency so that we can, have our DNA elevate.
Yeah. Matt, let me tell you about a little story that kind of ticks me off. And it goes to what you were saying. It's not that we're special. It's not that we're chosen. It's not that, we're better or someone's not. And sometimes it's to the point where it ticks me off. I mean, you did a lot of spiritual work. I've done a lot of spiritual work, a lot of meditation, a lot of shadow work, a lot of dark nights of the soul. And you're working. And finally you get one of these revelations. And there's this person I know, addicted to Adderall, high on cocaine, drunk, a few months from going into rehab, decides that she wants to see Lord Shiva, clears her mind, says, I want to see Lord Shiva, and he shows up.
Right.
He just shows up. How is that fair?
Oh my God, that's hilarious. Well, I don't know. What I'll say is that I've heard that anybody can access it at any time, right? And so maybe maybe it was earnest seeking, and that's what I think.
True. Like, you can that, and I say that for the people in the chat room. You don't have to be Matt Belair or Jay Campbell. You don't want to be Jeff Daugherty, but you don't have to be at some place. You just have to decide that you really want it, and you don't know what you can access. You don't know what you can do. You don't know what is out there for you until you humble yourself and clear your mind and ask. You never know what's going to happen. And if you never ask the question, the answer is always no, isn't it, Matt and Jay?
Yeah, and I want to actually touch on one thing, because we talked about traveling, before, and I think another element to this is being alone.
Oh, bam! Yes.
I've spent months alone. You are only alone. You come in alone. You die alone. You got to figure out what that space is, and that's critical. And when people are like, because I got a lot of really positive feedback, and then the only negative feedback that I got, and I've recognized that's an insane story. If you want to call me a liar, go for it. You just call me a straight up liar. But someone's called me like other words. I can't remember the word. I was like, call me a liar, but not those words. Those don't make any sense. But one of the things I can say that is different is I have been seeking for as long as I can remember, wanting to know honestly, authentically. Number two, I have never really thought about what I can get from others. I've always thought about how can I give and how can I help? And my anxiety and my depressive moments and feeling not good enough, they all stem from wanting to help so badly because it's so messed up and I want to be able to do more. That's the difference. I don't think you're ever going to get to like this state of consciousness and personal development and inner fulfillment and get a wink from the forest if you're going around just trying to harm everybody. You know what I mean? That you're the forest, you live in the ocean, you live in the forest, there's higher powers, there's higher beings, and they're going to work with people cooperating, but you don't just go, maybe some people could just switch over. But those are the things that I can say are a little bit different from that. And all it does is like, I got to walk the path always blind. I have no idea. I'm like doing leaps of faith all the time, but I was like, is this action helpful or is it harmful? And just do your best. So,
and like Sandra says, it's an inside job and you never know when the inside job's going to come to fruition. So you just keep doing the work. It's never going to happen if you don't do the work. It's never going to happen if you don't get into your inner self and do that inside job, but you never know when it's going to happen. So we should be in expectation. We should be, looking for it. We should be expecting it. And you just never know. And you got to keep going. And it really is all about what you do on the inside. And you can talk about it. And it's like trying to explain to somebody what chocolate tastes like. Until they get there, they just don't know.
Well, Jeff, one thing that we're leaving off, which is so important, and and I know Matt is such a humble guy, and he's never really been a service to self person. And as you guys know, and you were really, Jeff, at one time too, when you were a Pentecostal preacher getting paid. And even when you're in sales, right, you're somewhat like hardcore heavy sales, like you were in Mike Ferry and all that stuff. Like there is parts of that force us to be service to self. And plus we're around so many people that are service to self about money, get paid, get that big commission check, do that, make that quota. I mean, it's hard living in the matrix. The one thing that we're not saying here, and we have so much ample evidence to prove this, it's the full surrender that brings the presence, however we want to refer to it, Thoth, God, creator force, what Matt was referring to earlier today when he was in that deep state where he was, trying to cut a knife. That's when you can have this divine grace, okay, occur to you. Because all of these guys, Eckhart Tolle, David Hawkins, I could go on and on. There's people I'm not thinking about right now, but when the presence came into them, they were at rock bottom. They were like, David Hawkins very, very clearly in his book says, he was dying of cancer. He was suffering. He was horrifyingly bad. He was a person of massive ego, a very successful practice of psychiatry in New York City, tons of celebrity clients, making bank. And then he got cancer. He was obviously an atheist too. And he got cancer and he was dying. And he literally said, if you really exist, I could use your help. And then boom. And it's the same story that Eckhart Tolle says. And there's many other people. Bill W., the same thing. The guy that founded AA, the same thing. So you do have to fully surrender. And sometimes to fully surrender, because as we know, our ego is so powerful. Our ego likes being here. Our ego likes this shell, this nonsense that we think is so important. And when you're at rock bottom, maybe due to sickness or disease or death, or whatever, and you fully surrender consciously and your ego dissolves, that's when the amazing God comes into you. Whatever you want to refer to God, that's when it comes into you. And I have my spiritual mentor, and Matt, you and I haven't talked in a long time, but my massage therapist, cranial sacral, regression hypnosis therapist keeps telling me, Jay, you're spiritually evolved now. You know what to do. You're where you're at, but you still haven't surrendered. She keeps saying that. And it's true. I haven't surrendered. I like me. I like being who I am. I like being a dad. I like being a husband. I like doing what I'm doing in the world. I like helping men optimize. But dude, until you can fully surrender, you're not going to experience the world as it ultimately can be experienced. And that's not a judgment of myself, but that's just the reality. And it's like reading as much as I have, I've learned that until a human being can fully surrender to the power and awe of God, and that means that you trust everything to God. And remember, God is not some Santa Claus in the sky. God is inside you. That simple. Connect with what is already your spiritual essence, and your life will be amazing.
Yeah. Matt, you go a lot of places, deal with a lot of people, see a lot of things. How do you deal with people personally? And not people outside of the realm of spirituality, not people that are not feeling any impetus towards trying to be good people. But if you get with people and you're around people that are within the spiritual genre that don't act with integrity, how do you deal with that personally when someone within our genre doesn't act with integrity?
That's a really good question. And Jay, thanks for that share. It's an awesome share. And yeah, you got this, I was just going to say on your point, the ego is like, you can have self-care. That's totally fine. You know what I mean? And ego is kind of like your personality. It's just attaching to those things, right? So if like, I am a dad, that's part of what you are, but it's like, it's beyond that. So we have this identity, but it's observing the identity and not doing crazy things. Like I'm the number one realtor, so I'm going to do some weird crap because I want to be the number one realtor. It's just like, I also sell real estate. If you need a home, I can help you. I actually do that. Right. If you want to get better at sport, you can call me up. I can do that, but it's not just a thing that I am. So, I just want to share that on ego, because it can be a
absolutely
thing. That's a really good question. I think a lot of what I see now, the consciousness movement and woke and spirituality, I see it a little bit like skateboarding when I was a kid, where skateboarding wasn't cool and then it became cool. And then you had posers. Nothing wrong with posers. Nothing wrong with spiritual posers are people who are in it. What I find challenge with is that it's like martial arts. You know, it's beautiful that you're in this game and you're on this path. And from where you were before was very different. You know, you had a different set of beliefs and goals. And there was an experience that made you want to look somewhere else. And then you went into the martial arts gym, but you have a white belt. And as long as you're cool with being honest with the belt that you have, you know what I mean? But we get into, I see like a lot of like the spiritual ego, and, you know, my chakra is more aligned than your chakra. And, you know, Alan Watts will call it the guru contest. And man, we're all teachers here. We're all teachers, but you're not teaching when you're not coming from humility. You know, I know no more than anyone else, anything, you know, really. Right. But when I listen and I want to seek your understanding of that question, but when I come in and I'm, you know, Matt Belair, Zen athlete, super cool, you know, and then, you know, somebody says your book sucks. I was like, well, you know what? I've trained martial arts for quite some time. So how about I just beat the shit out of you? There we go. Now, ego coming in, and, you know, righteous body slam, you know, and make sure we get some selfies along the way. That's when it's all messed up. And so the idea is that, you know, this is something that I could share, and I think it could help, you know, and what is it that you could offer? So I think just allowing compassion. And then I think that, it's okay to kind of call them out in a proper way. You know, like if somebody backstage at a spiritual event is being a total dick to somebody serving their food, I'll just be like, hey, come on, man, don't go up there and talk about spirituality and be an a-hole to the person. You know, it's who you are when no one's looking. And I think if you want to be spiritually evolved, do an act of kindness, go out of your way. That's it. You know, day by day, step by step, be kind. You know, that's
absolutely. And you can see Matt Belair's work at mattbelair.com, right?
Yep.
And Jay's work is at totevolution.com. You can find my work at whoops, wrong button. You can find my work at jeffreydarty.com. And just for the record, of those 3 websites, I'm the only one wearing a shirt. Just saying. And there's a reason.
I want to go back to something real quick. First off, Matt's book, guys, is really good. Okay. I don't say that being, as my buddy always says, a renowned author. Matt's book is awesome. Okay. I read Matt's book. I bought it about more than a year ago, and I put a lot of the principles from his book into play in my own life. I still have my planner with a lot of the stuff that Matt has. Matt's book isn't just about what he has done and his world travels and the things he does. He gives literally actionable techniques at the end of the book that you can put into play tomorrow. If you guys are watching this right now, honestly, go on Amazon and buy his book. And don't buy the Kindle, buy the paperback, because you're going to refer back to it. You're going to use it. There's a lot of great stuff in his book. It's a really, really good book. And Matt knows this because Matt is like an amazingly high spiritually conscious guy. I didn't think the book was going to be like, wow. But when I read the book, I was like, wow. I mean, Matt's a very good writer too. I mean, I know he probably had some people that helped him shape it, but it's a really good book. It flows from beginning to end. I mean, I read the whole book in about 2 days.
Nice.
Really, really good book. I mean, and Monica read it too. And, you know, and I asked Monica, I said, what do you think? And she reads tons of self-help books and has for, you know, decades. And she's like, it's really good. You know, Matt didn't steal anybody's information. He didn't like go to Wayne Dyer, Hawkins and regurgitate. It's his thoughts, but a very high conscious stuff. It's really, really good book. You should all of you guys should buy his book. 100%.
Excellent.
You're a big sweetie, Jay. Thanks, man. Well, I was going to say, you know, about it is like, all I wanted to do is make it practical. And that's the thing, you know, in researching consciousness and spirituality and self-help, it's just the best principles that I've learned. So you actually can make a difference. If you want to lose weight and I write a self-help book, you better lose weight. My book sucks. So this is to make you a better athlete, to slip through kids, but it's really a guide to self-mastery. It's the simple, timeless principles in self-mastery. So it could be business, it could be art, it could be music, it could be mindset, but it's simple, it's straightforward. You can apply it today. Like if you want strong legs, go do squats, you know, and I figure out the things that work that you can apply, take out the mystery, you know, like I like, you know, Catching Fire and those books but it's kind of like The Secret where I want to know how to do it. And so if you want to learn how to do it, and anybody who's listening to this, if they do buy the book, you can send me an email. I'll send you some bonuses and things like that, because really the idea is you can slip this into any coach should have this. Any kid should have this, because you teach this in schools. You can apply these principles anywhere. If you apply the principles that it took for an athlete to land the world's first front flip heel clicker on a motorcycle, and then a front flip Superman 3 weeks later on a friggin' motorcycle, to learning music, to building a business, to doing whatever, it's essentially picking a goal, how to get there quickly and effectively and efficiently, and doing it from a place of fulfillment from where you are. And that's how you navigate life.
Absolutely. Now, Jay's book, it says that it'll teach you how to lose weight. I've only lost about 50 pounds by following the strategies in that book. So I'm not really sure if I'm sold on it yet, but it's looking pretty good so far.
Well, you know what? I want, because just before we hang up, because I know it's close to, and Jeff's got a long day. It's on the East Coast for him, Matt. And I know he's probably tired because he's doing a lot of stuff this week, but you're so good at providing strategies for people. And I really want, before we shut it down, I want like each of us to give like maybe 2 or 3 strategies. I'll start. Okay. And a lot of this I learned from Matt's book a long time ago, but you know, I keep going back to Hawkins. Okay. If you live your life, the 3 things most important. The first thing is you 100%, as Matt always says, is be kind to others. Smile, be kind. You have no idea what happened in that person's day. Don't judge them. Be kind and be of service. And again, be of service with no attachment to any outcome. Okay, just be of service. We wake up in the morning some days and we got the bad energy and we don't feel good and blah, 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 blah. And then we go off into life and then it affects us. Don't do that. Okay. Second thing is, and I always say this is practice loving as a state of being. Matt really helped me with this. I have a big heart chakra, but I wasn't leading with my heart chakra. So lead with your heart chakra. Okay. And when I say loving as a state of being, this is not romance. You're just respecting all of life. Don't step on that bug. Don't get mad at the rat dog that's nipping at your heels. Love everything. And then the last one, and Jeff knows this is the hardest one for all of us watching this, but it's the most important one, and that is forgiveness. Yeah. And no matter what someone does to you, you have to forgive them. They kill your daughter. They rape your mom. I know you don't want to forgive them, and you think I'm nuts, and you're like, that Jay Campbell's crazy, but guess what? The reincarnation wheel will spin and spin and spin until you can forgive. Okay, I'm done.
Matt Belair.
Wow. I follow, I would just double down on what Jay said. Really, I think that kindness is the most important thing. Being kind, learning how to just clear your mind. And the thing that I like to suggest to people is that you have a lifetime to create who you are. And so figure out what your values are, figure out how you want to enjoy the human experience, have some faith, give yourself a goal. If you don't know what you want to do, give yourself some time, think about what you're passionate about, what you want to enjoy, what you want to learn, and then give yourself a life to create it. It's not supposed to be in one day. And as you move through that, do it from a state of fulfillment. Do it from a state of gratitude and appreciation. And usually if you're depressed, you're thinking about what you don't have and you're anxious and right. You're just thinking about what you don't have. Think about what you're grateful for. If you've got roof over your head and you got food, you're doing pretty good. So just try to focus on what you're grateful for, be kind to others, but remember how powerful that you are. Imagine anybody who is the worst at anything. If they practice a little bit for 10 years, they're going to be pretty damn good after 10 years. So just remember that. And, yeah, that's it. Definitely be kind, be kind. And just remember how, you're going to have to be your own creator. You're going to have to figure out how to be alone, connect to spirit in your own way. So just learn to drive your own ship, take advice from others, seek understanding from them rather than being right. And learn to trust yourself a little bit more and go and do kindness and you'll be okay. It'll be all right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When I first started this work, really with a lot of exuberance and really drilling down to it, I was given a couple of things that people probably think are cliches. They're kind of my catchphrases. One of them is unindoctrinate yourself. And really, if you're going to get started, you've got to stop. You got to find out what you believe. You've got to get out of your head everything you've been taught. You got to get out of your head everything that's been drilled in. And you got to look at the evidence, look at the data, and decide what you believe. Unindoctrinate yourself and become enlightened within your own self based upon your own beliefs. So unindoctrinate yourself, find out what you believe, Find your great basic purpose. Why were you put here? And then I say, create yourself. Find out who you are, what you are, and then start, like Matt and Jay are saying, building a life towards that. And I'm convinced, you know, I've been in this 36 years in the spiritual realm, 20 years as a Pentecostal evangelist, Bible college graduate, 100,000 hours of study in the scriptures, now 17, 18 years in this free form, whatever we are thought. And I just learned about 4 months ago about the magic, and I call it magic, of meditation. Until you sit on the meditation cushion and until you find out, you get yourself into that 0 point, or you get yourself into that place where you realize, I'm over here, and these thoughts and these desires and these worries and these doubts and all these other things are out there. Until you find out who you are, and until you actually have the guts to go in and do the inside work and do that deep shadow work, you're never going to get anywhere. You got to unindoctrinate yourself. You got to create yourself, and you've got to face yourself. You got to go into that dark night of the soul. And I think if you do those three things and you get a hold of some good tools like these guys have, and you can get, you know, I don't wear these bracelets just because they're cool. They put me in the Schumann resonance. That gives me a fighting chance. Jay and I aren't pushing fluffy because we think it's cool. It puts us in a 500 to 560 Dawkins frequency, gives us a fighting chance. Doesn't make us spiritual, but it supports our work towards becoming spiritual. And you just gotta, you don't have to do it. You don't have to create the wheel yourself. There's guys like Matt Belair. There's guys like Jay Campbell, and they're giving you some tools that you can put into practice and you can use. I'm living proof of Jay's work. I'm just discovering Matt's work, but I'm sure it's just as effective. And it's really not that complicated. It's just making a decision and deciding that you're going to do it. And, you know, like Sean Connery said in, you know, The Hunt for Red October, when Cortez brought his men to the New World, they burned their ships in the harbor. As a result, they were very motivated. Strike a match, burn a bridge, burn a ship, give yourself no retreat, and just go for it. Awesome. Matt, tell us again how we can get a hold of your information.
You can hit me up at mattbelair.com or zenathlete.com. And I just want to say that was epic. I totally agree with everything you just said. So thanks for that share. You guys are brilliant. And yeah, the point that you're making is just be your own leader, you know, and figure it out.
Guru.
There's great information. Just enjoy the search. We're all blind. I don't know shit. You know what I mean? Every day is like this new experience, and I just do my best with what I've learned and what I'm doing. And, you know, it's ups and downs. So you guys surmise that beautifully.
Absolutely. My friend Scotty Roberts says, the more shit I know, the more I realize I don't know shit.
Exactly.
Jay, how do people get in touch with you?
Easiest way is to send me an email, jay@trtrevolution.com. I'm very involved on Twitter. I try to be, it's at TRT expert, but you know, if you have something you want from me, I'm always sending my books out to you for free. Just request them, jay@trtrevolution.com.
Absolutely. And if you want to work with me or Sandra D, my fiance, you can find us at serpentdove.org. You can find us at rawreflections.org. You can find us at jeffreydarty.com. We are here to help you create yourself. We are here to help you build a life you love. We're here to help you unindoctrinate yourself. And like you're hearing here all tonight, it is an inside job. Gentlemen, please stay there for a moment so I can say goodbye to each of you. To the rest of you, I salute you that are here seeking after truth. The divinity in me does recognize the divinity in you. And even though it's cliche, I know it's an activating phrase. So I do want to wish you all love and light. Matt Belair, thank you so much. Jay Campbell, thank you so much. And to the rest of you, thanks so much. And we'll see you all again real soon.